Yeah.
This morning we have a guest. Lena. And quite a nice turnout. It's great to see everybody. And we have Dan online too. Dan. All right, well, we're gonna start off with a Rotary minute from Chris Stewart.
Keep the applause down. So my Rotary Minute is about the Rotary magazine and vocational school, which is near and dear to me. When I was a teenager, I was at CBU and I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And thanks to a really good school counselor, I decided to go to vocational school. So I went to vocational school for building trades, and the article here is about a young woman who went to this vocational school that was started by a group of concerned citizens, including some Rotarians, and it was for at-risk students. So she started the program and then things started to fall apart, and then she got back in it. And it's just really wonderful because in the area where this takes place, there weren't any vocational schools, and it was just how, you know, people being concerned for the students that they started it. So they taught her how to weld, how to bend metal, how to fix classic cars. She had grown up with a father that was a mechanic, but she also had some problems like a lot of teenagers do. But it was just really encouraging to see that, and it's thanks to the help from Rotary. So that's my minute. I hope I didn't go over. Consider New Hampshire.
All right, and now, thank you very much, Chris. We'll invite Dan Clark to give our inspiration.
You know, the older I get, the more I ponder life's big questions. Like, do pets go to heaven? So I have it on very good authority that they do. Not Pastor Paul, much bigger than that. Instagram, right? So 2 dogs and a cat approached the pearly gates, and God said, before I let you in, I need to know what you believe. So the first dog was a Rottweiler, and God says, tell me what you believe. Rottweiler, she says, I believe in hard work. I believe in discipline. I believe in loyalty to my owner. God said, that's very impressive. Come take a seat on my right hand. The other dog was a golden retriever. And God says, tell me what you believe. The golden says, I believe in love, caring, respect for all, and togetherness. God says, oh, that's very nice. Please take a seat on my left. And the third was a cat. God says, tell me what you believe. Cat says, I believe you're in my chair. So what's inspiring is not pets, but laughter. So amazing, all known societies laugh. And we all know the babies laugh before they can even talk, right? You can play peekaboo with any baby anywhere in the world and they laugh. Babies that are born blind laugh. Babies that are born deaf laugh. Everybody laughs. And why is that? So of course, there's people that have studied that and they believe it's to help us form connections and to signal cooperation with other people. So we laugh in a certain way with people we know and a different way with people that are strangers. But in both cases, we laugh to help us connect. So that's a lot like Rotary to me, right? Connecting and cooperating with people that we know and people around the world that we don't know. So that's my inspiration.
Thank you, Dan. I have to tell you, I am a cat lover.
That's so true.
All right, well, just a few announcements before we turn it over to our speaker. First off, Green Mountain Transit had some benches that they're willing to donate to us from a old station that's no longer in use. And so we're gonna need a little help to pick those benches up. It's not a giant rush, but we should probably do it within the next few weeks. So I'm wondering if there's anyone with a pickup truck and some strong arms who might be willing to. I think we'll need two, at least two people,
Yeah.
yeah. Chris and Howard, okay.
And Dan. too.
Oh, and Dan, okay. Great, well, I'll get you the details so that you can arrange a convenient time for you. It's pretty open and everybody.
And then what?
Oh, we can store them in our barn, until we're ready to put them up. I had explained to Chris about them the other day that they need a little repair. And Walter, they can go into whatever plans that you'll be putting together for our bench program, either to replace a bench or find a new spot for a bench. There's 3 of them. We'll probably net 2 good benches out of it once we do the repairs. Thank you. And then I guess a few announcements related to our big event on Saturday, the Bill Skips Story Slam. First off, anyone who is able to walk easily, if you could park across the street for the day of the event instead of in the church parking lot, that would be helpful. I think we're gonna probably fill up our parking capacity. And I know Leslie's working on trying to see if we can, our Pastor Paul is working on, see if we can, put out an announcement to ask people to reserve, not park in that to access the rec trails, on that day. Also, I was asked to remind folks to purchase a ticket if you plan to be here, even if you're working the event. And then Leslie, I think you had something you wanted to share.
Dude, thank you. So I said that I would provide donation jars for the event. I had in my mind how I would decorate them. And then I happened to see Elena one day painting a card for one of her teachers. And I was like, well, crap, what I'm gonna do is not even gorgeous. So Elena, would you please stand up? Well, then I will come to you. So Elena painted these amazing donation jars. I commissioned her to do this. I said, name your price. And she said to me, I want to donate this to Rotary. I don't want to be paid for this. You're a very important member of this club. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Those are really beautiful and nice elements of our event. So Jen, Jen wants me to announce.
You asked for them.
She has very nicely printed out the rules and tips for the storytellers, knowing that a number of our members are planning to tell stories. So this is just to help you prepare and your final preparation. So if anybody wants one of these, we can pass them around. Is there anything else related to the story slam to mention?
So as I think everyone knows, we have a very limited time for room setup. So Saturday, everyone get here at 3, please, and help us set up because we only have from 3 to 4:30 to get everything set up. And to me, that feels really tight since we haven't been able to do like a dry run. We are planning to set up the stage tomorrow and kind of get a bunch of stuff cleaned out so that we won't have to do all of that on Saturday, but setting up all the chairs and making sure we have the flow right and everything. So Saturday at 3. Thank you.
I'm feeling really good about all the preparations that folks have done, and Sherry, you're feeling good?
I do. I mean, everyone is doing what they said they would do, so it's great, yeah.
And we've sold over 100 tickets, so we're gonna have
That's what I wanted to know is how many tickets.
Yeah.
we had sold.
like 100 and 104.
3 more this morning.
Okay, 107.
Climbing.
Yeah. We'll be about at capacity, I think, so that's great. All right, well, if there aren't any other announcements, I will turn it over to our esteemed guest speaker, Erik Wells, who's gonna talk to us about the important subject of our town budget. Yes.
Thanks for making it work, Eric. So, this morning's speaker is our esteemed member, Erik Wells, the Williston Town Manager. I just grabbed a few quick facts on Erik. He was born in Exeter, New Hampshire. He went to Spalding High School and St. Mike's College, and then he got his graduate degree at UVM. He lives in Essex Junction, but trying to become a Williston resident, it sounds like. He has a wife, Bree, and a kid, Harrison, and he's gonna talk to us about town meeting day. So thanks for being here.
Morning, everyone. Driving in down Mountain View Road and had the sun right in my eyes, but I thought, it's 4 days in a row, the sun's been out, we have a streak going. I may need a couple sips of coffee, had a lively 9-month-old baby at 3:30 this morning. Making it work. Great to see everyone this morning. I'm gonna talk about town meeting day coming up here, in less than a month. You want to put the presentation? Slide. All right, so as we get started, the schedule for town meeting day, it's gonna be Monday, March the 4th at 7 o'clock in the Wilson Central School Auditorium. We'll have the polls open for voting at the Army from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 5th. We'll have absentee and early voting available starting in mid-February. Checking with town clerk Sarah Mason. We got our proof of our ballot in the other day. We checked it and they're printing it this week, so we should have those in for early voting in town hall starting next week. So I'll talk about the budget this year, and we have 2 bond articles on the warning. So the town budget is our spending plan. It includes the services to be provided, the cost to provide those services, and the revenue to pay for the services to balance the budget. The budget's the best revenue and spending model with information available. We're working for fiscal year 2025, so that's going through June 30th, 2025, the budget year that starts July 1st, 2024. So at a staff level, we work to make our best assumptions of where things are going to trend, especially on the revenue side a year and a half from now. And sometimes we have to adjust to see how things play out that time. To deliver these services in town, we have to deliver a balanced budget that the voters consider coming up on town meeting day. This process really starts in about August of every year. We start having department heads will draft their budgets and they'll get those to me and our finance director, Shirley Goodell-Lackey, usually by late September, early October. We'll review the operating and capital expenses with departments, and then we'll put together a manager's draft budget to transmit to the select board, usually around Thanksgiving by the beginning of December. Then the select board holds a series of public meetings, a public hearing to review the budget and make final decisions by late January. We have to post a warning for town meeting 30 or 40 days before the first Tuesday in March. So that gets us where we are today here in early February. And this is the time where we want the community to know what's being proposed for town meeting and ask good questions, and hopefully everyone remembers to get out and vote down here. So if we go to slide 4. So the numbers this year, the budget, general fund budget or operating budget's about $15.35 million. This provides all our town services from police to fire, EMS, public works, recreational library, and everything in between. It's about a 9.84% increase from the current fiscal year. Our objective in developing this budget was twofold. First, in transmitting the draft budget, I put together with the staff a level services budget showing continuing the services we offer today, what that cost would be in the new fiscal year. Then I identified for the select board some possible service enhancements, focusing on the staffing side, and the select board has a little bit of discussion in December and January about what to look at for potential additions to the budget. Do the next one. So it is a big number, and I want to get in those details a little bit more. We had a lot of thoughtful discussion at the board meetings. The primary objective of the budget is, as I said, sustaining our current municipal services amid these cost pressures we face. And overall, providing the services to the communities possible by our dedicated town staff. Working to attract and retain staff in the current employment environment has been a challenge. In Vermont, as most people probably know, we have a 2% unemployment rate. Here in Chittenden County, that's about 1.7%. Municipalities around us are competing for a very limited pool of staff at times, especially in emergency services. Give an example in our police department, we've been down a number of positions off and on the last few years. It's about a year ago now, we had 4 officers leave to go pursue other opportunities in other police departments. We're still trying to find two of those positions are still open. For folks who aren't familiar with the process, if someone is not a certified trained police officer, from the time we hire them, get them through their background check, it's a rigorous process. Have them actually on the road by themselves policing can take sometimes 12 to 18 months. There's 2 residential 18-week academies that are running starting February and August of every year. We have a new officer, and she just started the police academy this past Monday. So she'll be there for 18 weeks, then she'll have 12 weeks field training after that. And then she'll hopefully be on the road by herself by later this summer. So as we're trying to fill these last 2 remaining open positions right now, we hope to get people in an August academy, that graduate next December, field training after that, then be on the road by themselves, maybe this time next year. So there's a long pathway to get people certified for policing. We're having a lot of folks have retired or left the policing career the last couple of years as well throughout the state, throughout the country. Our department's working hard to try to come up with new strategies for recruiting and getting people interested in the profession. We built a team of our staff that's going to be going to some career fairs at colleges and universities this spring as well. So that is certainly one thing that's on our mind here. And as the effect of that, I should mention we had a couple new officers who went through the academy to that process, and they were 2 of the 4 officers who went to pursue employment at other departments last year. And what we're finding is it's the cost driver from other departments are offering more money at times. So the select board authorized a memorandum of understanding with the police union last spring to amend their wage scale to make sure we remain competitive, especially here in Chittenden County. So part of what we're seeing is the effect on that and the overall budget this fiscal year as the first time that hits the budget. So overall in this budget, consistent with prior years, we do a cost of living increase and a merit or a step increase for our unionized staff. We do our cost of living based on a consumer price index of over a certain period of time. That's still about 3.5%, given where inflation was the last couple of years. It is cooling, which is good news. And then we typically budget a 2% merit or step increase for staff as well. So we see that in addition to the police union MOU, our fire department is also unionized. They had a contract that ran out last summer. Negotiations for a new contract with them are ongoing right now as well. And I'll just say overall, many towns are seeing this throughout the states, becoming a very expensive endeavor to provide 24-hour emergency services for police, fire, and EMS. So that is, it's a critical public service, and what we're seeing the effect on that a lot carrying in this budget right now. The other increase we see is health insurance costs, and we see that across sectors. The town changed its plan from a Blue Cross Blue Shield Gold to Silver this past January. If we stayed with the gold plan, our health insurance increase was going to be about $250,000. By making that change, it's a $120,000 increase instead of $250,000. Still a big number. It's an issue statewide as well with these costs. As I mentioned, we see inflation cooling out there, but it's still affecting professional and contracted services, materials, and supplies for the town. Professional services in this budget are up about $70,000, including assessments to Green Mountain Transit that we pay, a dispatch contract for fire with the town of Shelburne, our information technology and legal service costs. Inflation affecting how these services are billed for us and what they cost throughout. We also see the increases to fuel, property insurance, utility supplies. Probably no surprise to anyone here as we do our own home pages, the cost for many of these goods and services has gone up the last couple of years. It affects our town budget as well. Let's see what slide I'm on. We can go to the next one. So after we did that baseline discussion with the select board, they offered some things to think about for the board last December. I'm calling them service enhancements, and I'll go over the two that are in the budget here. But on the police department, we worked with consultant Jim Baker, he's a retired state police colonel. He's done a lot of work around the state. And we had him come in last year for our police department to take a look at how we're delivering services and look at our capacity and help us think about the future. So even though we've had some challenges with staffing, like many departments, we have to keep thinking about what that service looks like moving forward for the town. Jim did a good job on his report. The select board accepted it in January and has tasked me with drafting a 5-year implementation plan for the department to think about expanding our service capacity in the years to come. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's on the town website, or email me if you'd like a copy to go through. But out of that work, the top recommendation from Jim was to look at building capacity to have an officer in the detective role. The town has had that role in the past. We haven't filled that role for a number of years. To do that, the budget proposes an 18th police officer sworn position that would start halfway through the fiscal year in January. And that would allow us to then move one of our current officers into that detective role at that time. Detective role, we feel is a critical addition to the department to be able to have ongoing investigations. We certainly are being affected by retail theft in town and would devote someone with those resources on a daily basis to work towards that effort there. The other piece is a human resources director. We had another consulting firm, Hickok and Boardman, that we work with, take a look at our HR systems and capacity in town hall. Currently, our finance director has a dual title of finance and HR director. It's proving to be quite a lot for one person to carry in a senior management role in town. We also have the HR function spread amongst 3 other staff members. We're finding with a staff of over 100 employees, two unions, that we are faced with a lot of human resources work on a daily basis. And recommendation from that analysis was to look at adding a HR professional position to the town. So it allow that daily management of staff, help with all aspects of human resources. It becomes more and more complex with regulations to stay on top of as well. And then value added for further developing staff retention, recruitment. So we feel it's a good position to help us really in our central administration. It's not something like you say, a police detective that's out there and is visible as much, but it's important to make things kind of go day to day in town hall to have the right structure of support staff behind the scenes and this too, our employees are our greatest asset to deliver the services. So we want to make sure they're supported and developed and we keep our good staff here. Those are the two pieces that are what we'll call enhancements or additions to the budget this year. There's some other things from Jim Baker's report that we looked at as well, thinking about a second lieutenant position. That's something that we'll probably bring up again in the future, but I know the select board had some really thoughtful, good conversations about what to look at from the knowledge from that report and thinking about the bottom line here as well, and trying to balance what we need today and what we need for the future. One more thing on the police detective I should mention is right now with an officer, say they get a call for a retail theft, they're going to work that case. And we have officers who work usually 3 or 4 days in a row. If they catch multiple cases at once and they're off 3 or 4 days, there's no one devoted to just focusing on that case over time. So things sit and things stack up. So the value of the detective is to help move these things forward, find connections, there's common denominators, and try to get to the root cause here to resolve those issues moving forward. So we can go to the next one. I should mention the budget cost for those 2 new roles, the partial roles within the year is about $140,000 in new money to the budget. So we look by expense by object. I feel this is a good way to look at it sometimes. You'll see these 2 pieces of the pie. Our municipal budget is really 2/3 of it covers wages and benefits, and with some built in for training for town staff. And then it rounds out, you see our capital projects and our debt service is about 10%, contracted services about 8%. And along the line, going down the line there, things rounded out 1 or 2% for the other elements of the budget. Go to the next one, please. And then another way to look at it is by department, and 65% of the budget is to deliver police, fire, EMS, and public works services to the community. And 91% of the overall budget increase is to deliver these public safety services in these departments. As I mentioned, providing emergency services in this employment climate, along with the equipment costs we're also facing, I mentioned that for the capital side of things, it's a very expensive endeavor to offer. Go to the next one. So that's the expense side. So how do we make the budget balance? There's these elements that make up the revenue side of the budget. User fees, like zoning permits, recording documents in the clerk's office. We get some state and federal grant money. For example, all our town highways, we get, based on our road mileage, we get money from V-Trans every year to help with highway maintenance. So there's some formula involved with that. Post-town fees, with being the town where the solid waste district is, we receive money from them for being here in town. Our local option tax, the added 1% on sales, rooms, meals, and alcohol. That makes up about 25% or so of a core operating budget. The property tax, and then strategically using some of our reserves, having remaining ARPA funds. The focus of the select board has been to utilize ARPA for capital one-time purchases for the most part. We built a little bit in the operating budget and stepped it down each year to smooth that impact a bit. We went from $300,000 2 years ago to 125 to now 75. Those first 2 years, the 300,000 and 125 of ARPA, we didn't end up needing to spend it for operating expenses, just how the year ended. So the select board is going to be discussing how to allocate our remaining about $1.3 million in ARPA funds. They have a work session planned for our next meeting in February and a long list of good ideas to think about. That'll be coming up as well. So then just a visual here on how the revenue breaks down. In general, our property tax accounts for just half of the revenue, local option tax about a quarter, and then user fees and those other revenues rounded out, roughly about 20 to 25%. So looking at property taxes, what we typically do is look at what we project in revenue from all other sources and then round it out with property taxes for the remaining amounts and balance the budget. We have an estimated tax rate provided, but the tax rate isn't set until usually June of each year after the town's grand list is finalized, after values in April each year. So a note here, added to all these variables this year is we anticipate a flat grand list growth next year. We might say, well, we see all the steel going up in all the buildings in town. How can that be? In consultation with the town's assessor, we're also seeing valuation changes on properties in town. For example, Maple Tree Place just sold for $83 million, $77 million, and we had it assessed for $83 million. So there'll be a change there, most likely. We also, Vermont Gas Systems has a number of infrastructure in town, and the assessor tells me those are going to have a revaluation as well, with some work to have been overvalued in consultation with Vermont Gas, so that's going to have an effect as well. So we have the new growth in town, but then we have the current growth that's being decreased, the current valuation, so that's what we get a net neutral projection. We generally see a 1 to 2% grand list increase, roughly the last 20 years or so. So we may have a neutral grand list this year, and that certainly affects what you need to raise, how you set your tax rate, because it's going to factor into overall what that rate will look like. So on the numbers here, the projected rate increase is just under 4 cents per $100 of assessed property value. So that's about $40 per $100,000 of assessed value. The median home assessment in Williston is about $300,000. So that's about an estimate of $120 for the year, or about $10 per month for that median homeowner with a projected tax rate increase. And just a reminder, this is the tax rate for the town services. It's not the education tax as well. That's a separate bill that's sent out and voted on with the school district. But you get one tax bill, so you'll see it both on there. You'll make 3 tax payments, but this is just considering the municipal side. I know it's this week following the news on the education funding piece. It's a day-to-day changes I'm hearing right now. There's potential the school may delay their budget vote. The ballots are all printed in town hall right now, so we're trying to figure out what we're gonna do with those as well. It may be a situation where everything else is voted on except the school budget, and then there'll be a separate just school vote coming up, but it's very fluid this week and we'll learn more as soon as we do. I know the town clerks are all talking about how to approach this coming up, but we'll have to wait on news from Montpelier and the school district about how they want to proceed based on potential education funding formula changes this week. And then I'd like to take a look at kind of Chittenden County, and this visual shows our current fiscal year. Williston has the third lowest municipal tax rate in Chittenden County. Certainly, there's some towns on here that don't offer the amount of services like Williston, South Burlington, Essex, Milton of the world, Colchester. But for what Williston provides for especially 24-hour emergency services, the rate is particularly low. And that's really due to our local option tax offsetting that. If we didn't have the local option tax in place, that rate would be about 19 cents higher. So it'd be in the mid-50s per 100 of assessment versus the mid upper 30s as it is today. Next one. Two other items. So that's the budget overview. And there's two other articles the town has in their bonding authority. The first is a project to improve the parking lot behind Town Hall. It's a bond of $700,000 to consider for this project. The select board has also committed $200,000 of ARPA funds for this project. And with the town is applying for grant assistance from the Downtown Transportation Fund. It says if that grant was received and the bond was approved, we wouldn't have to borrow as much money. This project would improve the parking lot by adding additional parking up to 40 spaces. Improvement of drainage and lighting. I'll show a picture here in a second about what it looks like today. And really a big price addition to this project is laying electric conduit for public charging stations and future electrification of town fleet vehicles, including police cruisers. So we think about investing money to improve this parking lot and ripping it up, improving the drainage. The town thinks it would be a good approach to think about installing this conduit at the same time, as opposed to doing all this work, repaving it. And then as we want to electrify our fleet in the coming years, to then have to rip things up again and then lay the conduit at that point. So we're trying to kind of future proofing things. Do one large project here. Yeah, if you look on the right here, this is taken last month. We have an issue where the water pools in the middle there. Fortunately, had a number of staff members have slipped on ice over the years walking in the town hall, and I think some residents as well. It would address that issue of concern. We also have no lighting there. If you come to town hall for a meeting, especially in the winter months, it's very dark out there. We put a light to help a little bit on one of our outbuildings, but it's a safety issue for the public and staff that we'd like to include there. And the yellow dotted line kind of shows the area we're talking about. We would even get into where the police cruisers park, and they go in a different formation around that maintenance shed in the back there as well, with the intent that we'd have electric capacity to charge police cruisers at some point when the town goes in that direction, when the town makes that investment. Sure. So it's a big project, and I think it benefits the village overall as well. We've thought about overflow parking for other events and how that would create additional capacity in the town. Next one is one more bond ballot item. It's to consider installing a fire suppression system at the old brick church. Now, you may recall in 2007, the building was struck by lightning, and if not for the quick action by our fire department, we could have lost the building that day. Since then, a longtime goal has been to install this suppression system, sprinklers. What is the next one? That's a photo, thanks to Susan, front page of the Observer back in June of 2007, after the fire occurred, and the department was still putting the flames out. So discussions picked up around this building, especially the last couple months. Had a good discussion about a proposal from Verizon to install a repeater antenna in that in the top of the church, and good discussion about the future of that building. So I think it has a lot of opportunity for increased community use and one of the items to look at is the fire suppression system. I know the trustees are also talking about access to the building is especially challenging right now. It's not ADA compliant. So I think that those are kind of the two top priorities, fire suppression system, then thinking about ADA.
Fire suppression have affected the old steeple, which is where the lightning struck.
Probably wouldn't have helped as much. Depends if we had some water up there or not. And overall with a fire suppression system, it's not meant to put out a fire. It's meant to slow the spread of it until the fire department can get there. So just a reminder, early and absentee voting. If you want an earlier absentee ballot, you can contact Town Clerk Sarah Mason, sending her an email, give her a call, or visiting mvp.vermont.gov. And then return your ballots. You can drop them in the mail. We have a secure drive-through drop box behind Town Hall. Come by the clerk's office, or you can drop them off at the Armory between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on March 5th. Where to learn more? If you want to go on the town website, have a big budget packet. It's much larger than this too. You can go through and look at the details for every line item in the budget, including the capital budget. We're having that public information hearing on March 4th following town meeting, or just reach out to me. Come by, give me a call, drop me an email. Happy to answer any questions you have about the detail here. Then one more slide. I'm also just, I try to do this more, just drop in casual coffee chats. I've been at Healthy Living a few mornings. I'll be there a few more. Library a few days this month as well. I'll probably try to do this on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. I really just sit down and have a cup of coffee and people can come and talk to me about anything on the line. So had a couple good conversations so far. So happy to do it and happy to answer questions people have. I think that's it. We didn't work away with the numbers.
You told us that the budget was increasing 9.84%. Did you tell us what percentage the grand list had increased?
It'll be flat, so 0% increase.
Okay.
Susan?
Do a lot of folks take advantage of the coffee chat opportunity? Have you?
I've had a few. I think I had no one the first morning. Then we had a 200% increase. I had two people the next morning. I had a good chat with someone for a while at the library yesterday. So I'm trying to figure out the right time for different places. People are busy, but I'll just park myself there and talk.
So, not surprisingly, because of my work at the food shop, I'm very concerned about the Community Justice Center. Can you tell us, do you know offhand how much the town supports them and what's happening with the budget for the Justice Center?
Sure. So the Community Justice Center is a program. It's primarily grant funded through the Department of Corrections, and that grant funding's had a lot of conversations the last 2 years. It's currently in discussion in the legislature about maybe transitioning that to the Attorney General's office. So the program has about a $200,000 budget and about $130,000 comes through that grant. And then the town has historically made up the difference to make the program whole. It's a lot of personnel costs as well, and just programmatic costs. So, and the town also provides the space and oversight of the employees. They're members of the police department. So the Community Justice Center is a regional service. It serves about up to 7 towns around here: Williston, Heinsberg, Richmond, and Wilson's been the only municipality that provides anything for that service. So I approached the managers in Richmond and Heinsberg this year and asked them to consider helping to fund it. Sounds like between the two towns, the town of Wilson may receive $20,000 of support to help the program this year, which is good. We would have more detailed discussions coming up on that for a funding formula. So overall, roughly the town of Wilson would still make up about $50,000 of that cost and continue to provide the in-kind locations for it. But the big piece is the state funding, and seeing where that lands.
Is there any idea that will increase?
I'm not sure exactly. I got an inquiry from the legislature last week, just kind of asking for a wish list amount almost, and
Yeah.
it's kind of caught me off guard that day. But we put together some numbers for them to look at. I don't know where that will land exactly.
I think it's important to understand that as you talk about public services and safety services like police and fire. I think if it's not obvious now, it will become obvious that serving community justice is going to be a safety issue for our town and for other towns. So it needs to be considered, to continue to support the community justice.
Sally, the Baker report actually has in it a huge component for restorative justice in the increase of police services that we have. We have a location near the retail areas where people could be brought pretty much immediately if they're caught shoplifting or something like that. And the restorative justice process can begin ASAP, not just here's your paper, show up in a week.
Right.
But people will be given the opportunity with the staff right then and there. It's a wonderful innovation. So yeah, this is a terrible way to say it, but the Baker report is baked it in.
And everybody's paying attention to the Baker report.
Yeah, it was accepted by the board, and we told our town manager to get cracking on coming up with a way to implement it because he has very little else.
What about the staffing for restorative justice? I mean, what do we have for staffing?
Sure. Yeah, we have two full-time positions, a director, Chris Lee, and a restorative justice specialist. We had a staff transition in that position a little over a year ago, so we've had challenges trying to find someone to fill it. We plan to re-advertise that later this spring, once we have the funding picture from the legislature. We've had some volunteers who have helped out on a temporary part-time basis to help as well. And then we've had some good discussions recently because a lot of social service assistance has fallen to our CJC. So we actually had a meeting with our partners at the Howard Center last week to talk about everyone's role in this, and they're going to have more of a presence in the building, and they're going to be doing proactive work around town, walking around Maple Tree Place, checking in with people, getting to know people. Because the town, with a number of towns in Chittenden County works, has a contract with the Howard Center to help out those services. So we've had a little, with the pandemic, it's certainly escalated things and created more challenges, but we're trying to get back to a good place there. And Howard Center's had some staffing challenges the last couple of years as well, so. All these pieces fit together in a number of ways. Bill?
I know you got a bit of a reprieve, but when are we going to see this whole town reassessment?
Good question. So the legislature changed the formula from the common level of appraisal to the coefficient of dispersion. It's a different measure of market-based value. So really the town's common level appraisal used to be the trigger for reassessment at 85%. The town's CLA went to 77%, and this year it's going to be at about 69%. But that's not the measure anymore for reappraisal. It's the coefficient of dispersion. And that, when that is at 20%, it triggers a reappraisal. The town is currently at 12%. So our assessor projects maybe another 5 years or so before a reappraisal. And the state is also looking at a statewide reappraisal system as opposed to a local system. I think you get a reappraisal order once your CLA dropped, and I think 250 towns got a reappraisal order last year based on the market inflation. So what the state is thinking of doing is having a contract with a reassessment firm. They would have maybe 70,000 parcels a year they'd reassess, and they go on a rotating basis every 5 years.
So I know it's the ed budget, not your budget per se, but the CLA is below 80, and I think I understood that the town or somebody had appealed that for the ed formula. Do we know what the outcome is on that, and or when a decision? Because that must going to be affect the ed tax.
Yep. Yeah, we talking with the assessor, he recommended the town appeal, and the select board authorized an appeal. I got a letter saying they received it, but nothing further. But we feel if the appeal was granted, it may affect it 0.5 percentage point. So something, but not a huge amount.
Thank you.
All good questions. Thanks, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks for the good work you do, and as you know, a donation will be made to the
Both of them. Full names, right?
That's right.
Eric knows what.
Oh, yeah. Pick the big winner.